what we have here is an emulator of a scanner, and I actually have this scanner sitting on my desktop here. So you're going to be seeing a screen that I have of a device that's on my desktop, and I'll be utilizing that to input some of this information. But you can see here there are three primary modules within ScanStar: the receive, the track, and verify. So receive gives us the ability to receive or enter the assets into the configuration management database as we might receive them from a vendor. So if you think of a true asset management life cycle, this is early on in the stages of introducing this asset, bringing this device or component into our environment. Then the tracking is the ongoing movement of the asset from one user to another or from one location to another, right? And then ultimately the verify. The verify gives us that opportunity to do a periodic manual inventory. So at that point we can verify that what we have in the configuration management database is accurate. And if we walk into an office and we scan a device and it says that it belongs to Jill Smith, but it's in Tom Jackson's office, well, there's a discrepancy there, so it gives us the opportunity to make those types of corrections and identify those things. So again, these are the three modules that are included with ScanStar out of the box. So let's kind of walk through the first one, the receive, and just real quickly let me point out some features here. So the first thing we're going to do once we get to the receive screen is we want to scan the device. So we're just going to scan our barcode, and you can see that a serial number is populated. Now, in this particular implementation, we only have the serial number. Note that you do have the option of having serial number and barcode, or we could have just simply the asset tag. Or, excuse me, I'm sorry, not the serial number or asset tag. And so, again, you can have any combination of those two things. Once we've selected that, then we want to choose the asset type, right? So here we have a drop-down to choose from. So if we're receiving a Dell, laptop, we might choose the manufacturer, then the model. So here we have latitude, and then the status that this is going to be. So at this point, this is in stock. And that's all that we want to populate at this time. Now, maybe we want to, maybe we could identify some of the information that we, receive with our packing slip. So we know that this device was $1,570, so we can indicate that. Warranty expiration date. Here we're going to choose the previous day, but then we'll adjust the year here to 15, so we have a 1-year warranty expiration date. And then the support provider, we can identify that support information. And again, this is where you have the option during the implementation to choose what fields are most important. These are some of the out-of-the-box fields for the footprints integration, so it is slightly different for Remedy Force, but very much the same concepts apply here. And then in terms of our service date, well, we're going to indicate that that's today, okay? So now that we have this general information, well, what if we have, 3, 4, maybe 100 of these laptops that we're receiving? I certainly don't want to have to go through that exercise each and every time. So notice that the serial number here ends in 370. Well, I'm simply going to scan another barcode, and now we have our 991, the serial number ending in 991. And I can continue scanning time and time again until I've received and I've tagged all of my devices, right? And all of this information is stored locally on the scanner until we synchronize. So that would actually be the next step that we would take. So we're going to save and exit this module, and once we're there, we now see the button or the option to synchronize, and that's exactly what we'll do at that point. And so this is now communicating back to a ScanStar server. It doesn't have to be a dedicated server. Typically, it's going to be a server that might reside on the Footprint Service Core application server, or if you're with Remedy Force, then it might be a dedicated box. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a server class machine. It could simply be a workstation class machine, but that would allow us to communicate with the Remedy Force application that is in the cloud. So now that we've we're doing this synchronization, while that's coming up, I'm just bringing up the footprints version 11.6 here, which is the current version, but we are eagerly waiting version 12 coming out. But at this point, let's go in and take a look here at our configuration management database option. And we do see a message here on the scanner that the synchronization completed successfully, so that's good news. And if we look here at our ScanStar view, you'll notice that we have two assets, and these are the two devices that we had just scanned. And so if we take a closer look, again, to highlight some of the historical and audit information, we can see that the time and date stamp of the user who had scanned and entered this information is all captured, as well as the attributes that were identified during the population of data. So that is, that's basically what would happen, again, with any of the platforms, whether it was Remedy Force, Footprints, that same concept. Now that we have that device received and it's now in our CMDB, we probably will be assigning this to different users. We'll move it from location to location, those types of things. So at that point, we can just simply bring up the track module, and then if we were to scan a device, it recaps the information that was already populated. So at this point, we can now change the status from in stock to in production. We could identify the user that it's associated with. So in this case, maybe we want to assign this to Cy. So we're going to select him as the user of this asset. And another nice feature is the signature feature. So one of the things that we allow you to do is once you deliver that asset to a user, you can capture their signature, and that will store that as an attachment to the CI record. And at that point, you have proof that that customer, that one, that the asset was delivered by the technician, and two, that that customer received it. So there's never a situation where the customer's saying, I never saw this, and their kids at home playing Doom on the laptop, or something to that effect, or on the other end of the spectrum that a staff member may have accidentally carried it out, right? So again, it's one of those, and we actually, this is exactly the reason why this feature was introduced to the product. We had customers that were having issues with theft, and this was a great way to address that, and kind of, here's your proof that yes, it was delivered and it was received, right? So It's again, all of this information would be stored locally on the scanner until the point that we synchronized. And then lastly, on the verification. Now, on the verification, here we're going to select the verify option. And if we choose that, well, if I walk up to a device that maybe, is somebody left a laptop in a conference room and I scan it, well, if it doesn't exist in the CMDB, I can now record that, right? So maybe I don't want to enter this because I noticed that it's not our company asset tag that's on the device. It's, maybe a different company. So maybe a vendor had accidentally left that laptop in there. But on the other end of the spectrum, if I were to scan, a device that was in the CMDB, again, we could see the current information regarding that. So the make, the model, any of the location information. This was the device that I had just received earlier in the demonstration. So it's not been quite assigned to anyone yet. But again, those are the basic concepts behind ScanStar and the functionality that you have. Brett, did I miss anything? Is there anything that you feel is really important that people take note of before we leave the demonstration?
I think a couple of things. One would be track. Just to emphasize, tracking is, this is the way I see things. Receiving is, and I think you did a great job of explaining how receiving can, with little effort, bring hundreds of pieces of equipment, create those hundreds of records in the CMDB very quickly and easily. So I think of that as your bulk insert, if you will. Tracking is sort of your bulk update. So you might take those same 100 or maybe 50 of those, and you need to ship them across the country. So you go into tracking, and you simply fill out a new location. location, maybe the West Coast office, and then you take your scanner and you hit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just go on down the line of 50 of those assets, scan their barcodes, and as fast as you can pull that trigger, you have just assigned those to the West Coast office, or perhaps put them in some sort of intermediate state, like in transit. It's got however you like to do things. We've got we give you the ability to customize your workflow there by means of custom fields that you may want to put on the scanner. And I think, let's see, there was something else I was going to say about verification. I forgot what it was, though.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a great example there of your history and the way that you have that audit trail of how things